Welcome back to another video from Fantasy Football Forever. My name is Moish Steigman, and today we are going to talk about arguably the most important question of the fantasy football offseason, which is how do I prepare for my draft? This could be for a draft. It could be for an auction. It works in a keeper league, in a dynasty league, in a redraft league. This is the fundamental question of the offseason. And as we are all in the middle of drafts right now, it is the key question. I actually see two common strategies. The first is to target a specific player. For me, I love targeting Julio Jones in the second round. I think he's a top 3 wide receiver this year who is not being drafted as such. I also love targeting David Montgomery in the middle rounds. I believe that he is someone who is a lock for 250 carries if he plays the full season, but certainly on a carry per game level, he would get up to 250 over the season. And he is an arguable top 12 running back, maybe top 14 on a week-to-week basis when he plays. And he is being drafted in the 20s as a running back. So those are a couple of targets that I have. And one common approach is to identify your targets, go after them, and fill your team in around those targets. Here's why I don't think it's an optimal approach. If you're building your team around David Montgomery in the 6th round or Julio Jones in the 7th, you might miss opportunities to get value elsewhere. You might pass up on a running back in round 3. Maybe somehow Joe Mixon falls to round 3 and you pass him up as your second running back because you're looking for David Montgomery later. Right? We can often miss opportunities because we're locked in to a player that we like. In addition, and more important, thinking about 1 or 2 players as targets is not a draft strategy. Right? That is not an overarching strategy for how to approach a draft. Instead, that is the application of a strategy. As part of a big strategy, I'm looking to target a specific player at a specific time. Another common strategy that I see preparing for a draft is looking at positional scarcity. Right? We can look, there are only a couple of top tier players at every single position. We also know that wide receiver is deep this year, very, very deep this year. And sometimes we look at positional scarcity. I want one of the top 4 tight ends. I want Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. I want to get 2 top 10 running backs no matter what, because that well dries up way too quickly. So often we approach our draft focused on positional scarcity. I am going to get a specific tier of player no matter what. This too, I think, often fails because when we lock ourselves into a specific position, we also miss opportunities to simply draft the best player available. I see this happen time and time and time again at the back end of the first round and the middle of the second round, when people are drafting tier 2 running backs instead of tier 1 wide receivers or guys like Travis Kelce. Simply take the best player available. And that's a hard mantra to follow when you're locked into taking players in a specific tier. Here's my approach to every single draft and every single auction, regardless of format. I do not start at the top end of the draft. I do not try to evaluate whether Patrick Mahomes is going to be better than Lamar Jackson or Lamar Jackson better than Patrick Mahomes. I don't worry about ranking my top 4 wide receivers. I know they're all elite. I always start at the back end of the draft. Who is a guy I can get in round 10? A guy in round 13? Who are some players that I might like that I'm sure will still be on the waiver wire? When I figure those out, then I know that I can focus my early rounds, the most important rounds, on the rest of the team. And for me, this is played out most frequently at wide receiver. There is so much depth at wide receiver, particularly in PPR leagues, that after your draft is over, you are going to find 2, 3, 4 players on your waiver wire who can show up on game day, having not practiced, and catch 5 balls for 60 yards with a chance at a touchdown. They might not win you any weeks, but you can always backfill the end of your wide receivers with guys on waiver wires or with PPR players like Jamison Crowder or like Hunter Renfrow, there are always those players available. Which means as I am looking at my overall draft strategy, I know that if the wide receiver value does not present itself, I can take players at other positions. And I don't have to force drafting a wide receiver anywhere in the first few rounds. That's played out in some leagues. In other leagues, I have gone wide receiver heavy simply because I like the players who are falling to me. But that is my overall approach. Always look at the bottom tier quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends that you love. And if you see that there's a plethora of players at a specific position that you know you can fill round 10 or later, or even off the waiver wire, that opens you up to draft or to bid on players at all other positions, knowing you will not be short at one position. This is my strongest recommendation for preparing for any draft or any auction. Always look at the back end players first, and then you can focus on what your elite player targets are going to be. This is another video from fantasyfootballforever.com. Please like this video. Please comment on this video. Please follow this channel. The more of those, the more I am able to continue to produce wonderful video content just for you. Happy drafting, everyone.